What's up, guys? Tobin here with you. Thanks for checking us on out. Much appreciated. So, want to get to a few things here. And if you guys like the Tobin Leroy show, you guys can watch us every single weekday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And subscribe there. You guys can watch us live. You can get in on the chat. You can interact with the show on Twitch or on YouTube, Miami 560 WQAM. I will put the channel there. You guys subscribe there. Subscribe here. Like this channel. That'd mean a lot to me. Thank you. I'd appreciate that. But let's get to this. So the Miami Dolphins, they had such a fun year this past year, and they were a topic of national relevance for sure. But this was kind of interesting. I found this article that was circulating Finn's Twitter, Finn's Reddit, the whole rounds there, and it was from Heisman Trophy winner, USC quarterback Caleb Williams, who's not eligible to be in the draft this year. It's he'll be eligible in 2024 at the earliest. But he said of all the teams that he'd love to play for the Miami Dolphins. He said to People Magazine, didn't know they did football stuff, but good for them. He says, quote, "I'd like to be around younger coaches. I'd probably go to the Dolphins. I also would be able to play with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Mike Gesicki." Well, I don't know about that. "The defense isn't bad. That's probably my number one spot. I also like the colors. The colors are pretty cool and the weather's good." Fair points. Great uniforms. And maybe by the time, if Caleb were to be a Miami Dolphin, theoretically, maybe they'd be back to the throwbacks. Who knows? But I don't really so much want to talk about the idea that Caleb Williams, should we tank for Caleb Williams? Should the Dolphins pack it up for the Heisman Trophy? No, I'm not in that regard. First of all, let me tell you something. If Caleb Williams thinks that, all those stars would still be here and they'd be bad enough to go get him, then, I think he's got adjustment. But I do think it's cool that the Miami Dolphins hold a level of relevance and a level of excitement and a level of cool that top college guys are looking from the outside looking in. They're like, man, that looks like a fun place to go play. That to me was the biggest thing I took out of it. Not so much, oh man, should we go out there? Should we pack it up? Should we be in this spot where we go after, we go tank for another quarterback? We've been there. We've done that and look, you are all miserable from it because you're like, I don't know if I like to. Maybe I like Justin Herbert. No, we can't put ourselves through that again. But I do think the fact that you have top prospects looking at your situation saying, man, that looks damn fun to play with. And I think that's the thing that is encouraging. And I think this goes back a little bit to Vic Fangio too, of, and obviously he's getting paid a heap of money, but also he was definitely highly sought after. And it's like, well, what works best? What is the situation that I think is the most attractive to me? And it's been told the Miami Dolphins. This isn't necessarily a new thing. Like the Dolphins have always been pretty good at getting free agents, but I think it's a different thing to have the attraction of young players want to be drafted by you. And it's not surprising. You think about having Cheetah. Look how many people are just randomly doing the waddle. Your last name's not a Penguin. So to see all these people go out there and do the waddle, and yeah, they obviously captured the imagination of a lot of people. Tua winning a lot of fan votes. Number one in Pro Bowl votes. Like, people really dug watching the Dolphins this season and watching their big playability and what they were able to do. So pretty cool that a guy in the Heisman Trophy winner would say, man, if you could put me there, I think that would be a lot of fun. Now, obviously he's going to have to kick rocks because Tua Tagovailoa is going to be in the prime of his career and probably signing in a monster extension by the time he gets here into the NFL. But still, cool nonetheless that he was able to say that. Also interesting was a couple of things pointed out by Drew Rosenhaus, who was on the Joe Rose show. Shout out to Joe Rose. And that was a couple of his clients that he is tied into with the Miami Dolphins. And Drew Rosenhaus has a lot of clients on the Dolphins, especially on the defensive side of things, and obviously represents Tyreek Hill too. And relationships are important, people. That's what D Wade always says. So Drew was pointed out a couple of things. He said that he believes Emmanuel Ogbah is going to be back. And it's so funny because, Ogbah signs this $65 million deal. He all of it's guaranteed this season, $15 million this season. And I feel like all of the attention this year went into Byron Jones not playing and Byron Jones this and Byron Jones that. And like Emmanuel Ogbah just kind of flew under the radar of, man, they didn't have that guy. And you think about what importance he had to the 2021 season and what kind of a force he was, that everybody was like, man, priority number one for this defense is to bring in Emmanuel Ogbah and bring Emmanuel Ogbah back and to lock him up. And I feel like it's like the most under talked about story. I don't know if that's the way to put it. The least talked about story on high profile, high expectation guys. And, he obviously dealing with injuries this year, between his torn tricep. Well, I think he was dealing with a back thing too at one point. I may be off on that, but I think he was. And, just one sack in the 9 games that he played this season before it came to an end in week 10. And, you think about, they just went out and signed a pass rusher in Bradley Chubb after trading a first-round pick for him. They got Jalen Phillips on the up and up. So you're kind of looking at Ogbah and you're like, well, do they trade him? Like, is somebody in need for a guy of his skill set coming off of injury? What do you get for him? Do you have to attach something? Is that too much of an albatross to give up? I don't know. But that is it's such an interesting thing that he's here and we're looking at this season like, man, is there a need here? Is he going to help? I mean, certainly look, guys who can get after the quarterback, because I don't think everybody's necessarily sold on Bradley Chubb, and you're hoping that Vic Fangio can unlock a lot of that stuff. But I think most Dolphins fans look at this team and they say, well, the number one guy I think is going to be the force to get after the quarterback is going to be JP. Then you're hoping that Bradley Chubb lives up to what you signed him for. And then you have Ogbah, who it's like, all right, well, what's he going to bring to the table? Like, what is going to be his role on this thing? Because at one point it felt like he's that guy, and now you have the young guy, the young gun coming up in Jalen Phillips, and then you also traded for another guy to basically take his spot because he wasn't giving you anything, and you had to give him a first-round pick for it. So very, very interesting what's going to happen there in that situation. Then the other thing, Drew did talk about Landon Roberts, which is an interesting thing because the linebacker's definitely been a big thing of scrutiny for a lot of Dolphin fans coming into this. I like Landon Roberts a lot. Funny guy, leader of the team in his captaincy. But this, to me, is the big thing that Drew pointed out, which was Zach Sieler. Sieler it on up. I love Zach Sieler. Everybody knows that. I'm a big Zach Sieler guy. I think that a fascinating story, mauler up front. It felt very much like if you were going to look at the Dolphins this year and you said, well, the identity of the offense was Tua and the explosive receivers. It felt like by the end of the year, the identity of the offense were your two studs up front in Christian Wilkins and Zach Sieler. And Zach Sieler is very much deserving of a big-time contract because you think about the kind of havoc that he causes in the run game, the pressure that he's able to put up being side by side with Christian Wilkins. This dude was living in an RV. What a story that this guy has outplayed. So he gets that first contract. He gets to live in a place that doesn't have wheels. And now, I think it is time to pony up on a guy like him. His value seems to jump off. Like, it jumps off. It's not often that guys who are up the middle guys, like it is obvious what they're able to do. Sometimes, they take up double teams and it's a little bit of a thankless job. But I feel like for Zach Sieler, we saw that impact all over the place. Like, the defense wasn't perfect this year, but if you were to look at Christian and Zach Sieler, I don't think it was those guys that were the issue. And maybe, Dolphin fans are a little bit worried because that you're going to have to pay Christian coming on up, and that seems like it's going to be a heavy price tag with how good Christian was, because I think Christian was probably the best player on defense. But, his tag team partner right there, that feels just as important to lock that up. Drew says, we have really made that a priority in our discussions with the Dolphins. It doesn't take a cap expert to see how valuable Zach is and that he really outplayed his contract. That'll be a project we'll be working on very hard this offseason. He's an important part of the defense, and certainly it would be important, I think, to the organization, obviously to Zach, that we get his contract in line with his play. So one of the things that I'm not worried too much about is that Drew Rosenhaus and Chris Grier have a very, very tight relationship. So I think that they are going to do what they can to make both parties happy. But, man, I love Zach Sieler. I really, really hate to see the idea of a defense next year without Zach Sieler is an idea that makes me sad. I love Zach Sieler, dude. I just, honestly, I want to be during games. I still want to be like, Sieler it on up. Makes me happy.